This is every fight to make after UFC 302. On today's video, I am going to matchmake for all the key fighters on the UFC 302 fight card. So make sure you guys smash the like button. If you're new, subscribe it up. We're jumping right into it. Islam Makhachev versus Leon Edwards. I am going to call for the super fight to happen next. And I thought about saying the Arman Tsarukyan fight and having Makhachev prove himself against another really tough contender. But the more I thought about it, I said, right now is the optimal time for Makhachev to fight Leon Edwards, considering he needs to beat Belal. So I guess I am doing an early prediction for Leon over Belal. But assuming that Leon beats Belal, I think the Makhachev versus Leon Edwards fight is a massive bout to make. And I feel like even though it kind of log jams the top of the welterweight division, Shavkat Rakhmonov, who's obviously the next guy on the come up, I think he needs another fight before you give him a shot. And he has nothing booked at the moment. So who knows what the timetable will then be if Shavkat fights, let's say, somewhere in August with Leon fighting in July. What if he's ready in November? Shavkat potentially takes an injury. There's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts. I understand. He's like, oh, it's only a month out. But 4 weeks can make a big difference of who's ready and who's not. I want to see the Makhachev fight now because if Shavkat fights Leon and beats him, I am not confident that Islam Makhachev is going to fight fellow Muslim fighter, but also somebody who trained under Abdullah Nurmagomedov. Shavkat was his student as well. And I think that there may be that mutual respect where they wouldn't fight each other unless, you know, the title is absolutely on the line and maybe Makhachev would be the one holding it first and Shavkat wants to strive for it. I don't know if Makhachev would be as interested in going up and challenging him. It just could cause for a little bit of weird situations to arise. Even if Belal wins, he's trained alongside the Khabib team, so that could be weird too. So assuming Leon Edwards wins, I think we do the Makhachev super fight now. But if Belal pulls it off, then obviously it's Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan next. I think that definitely could be the fight. I think that's a matchup the UFC is interested in making. We shall find out. Dana White seems like he's on team Tsarukyan Makhachev all the way. But I feel like there's going to be other voices that are in the matchmaking that are thinking, you know what, the Leon Edwards fight timeline is kind of working out perfectly, assuming that he wins. We have to wait till July, but assuming that he does, I want to see double champ status for Islam. At least a chance at it. So I'm going to vote for him to fight against Leon Edwards in the next one. That's the fight that I need to see next. Now, Dustin Poirier is talking about retiring, but I'm giving him Alexander Volkanovski because I think when he comes to his senses, he's going to realize that his stock rose in his loss against Islam Makhachev. He gave Makhachev an extremely difficult fight. He had moments. I personally think that Makhachev was clearly ahead, but Poirier did damage. It wasn't a complete washout. I think that Makhachev was winning the vast majority of it and was even beating Poirier in the striking where he's normally most comfortable. But that just shows to how good the level of Islam Makhachev is everywhere. He showed really good takedown defense. He showed a lot of heart. He got caught in the darts choke in the 5th round. He tapped, but he also went out. Volkanovski lost to Makhachev as well. He's got a 2-fight series with him. Obviously, you know the story. I think that Volkanovski-Poirier makes a lot of sense because Volk called him out. Volk is showing a willingness to do this move to 155 pounds. He's not as adamant about an immediate rematch with Ilia Topuria. Now, why is it that he's willing to go and fight against Dustin Poirier as opposed to sticking at 45 and waiting for Ilia Topuria to fight Max Holloway and maybe win? I think it's because he knows that he would be better suited at this age at 155 pounds. And maybe the Poirier fight is a matchup that tests the waters there. I'm not saying he doesn't want it back against Ilia Topuria, but it doesn't seem like a bad idea for Volkanovski to give it a go against Poirier. And then if he beats Dustin Poirier and he wants to drop back down, of course he's going to get his title fight. But maybe Poirier could pull it off against him. It gives Poirier a chance to beat another former champion. He's done it before. Names that come to mind right off the bat, you got Conor McGregor win for Poirier. You got, obviously, the win against, now the name is just escaping me. I lose my mind. Max Holloway. I almost said Charles Oliveira. The lost Oliveira, obviously, for him. I think it makes sense to consider at the least this Poirier-Volkanovski fight. And Volkanovski's willingness to do it is what got me intrigued. So I'm going to say make that fight. Next up, Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. If it can be made for the end of the summer or very early in the fall, I'm talking first half of September. I don't want this fight to be in December because I do feel like Israel Adesanya wants to challenge for the throne, but he's not jumping at the bit to get the opportunity right now. And I think Strickland would be more than willing to fight quickly and turn around fast to step in for a world title against Dricus du Plessis. And Strickland said at the post-fight presser, like, he wants gold. He's not going to wait around and what he's going to fight, Jared Cannonier in another top contender fight. He sent Paulo Costa back. He took on Costa. He won the decision. Regardless of it being a subpar fight, it wasn't a banger. It wasn't a war. It was an okay enough fight. It was more like a sparring pace. There wasn't much significant damage throughout the entire thing, but it was still a win for Sean Strickland against the number 7 guy in the world in Paulo Costa. Either way, on paper, it's a W, and Strickland's style is really tough to deal with. And Strickland is adamant about his fight against Dricus du Plessis being a robbery. And a lot of people agree. I thought that Strickland did enough to win, but it was damn close. I think we rebook it. Let's do the rematch, especially with Adesanya not jumping at the opportunity. And on top of it, Strickland beat Adesanya, then went out and beat Paulo Costa. He's really cementing himself as the top contender. Obviously, there is another guy in the weight class that has a little bit of status, and that is Khamzat Chimaev with a win over Robert Whittaker. Could jump the line, but it puts the UFC in a weird spot. Maybe it's a Khamzat Chimaev-Adesanya fight then. I'm going to say Sean Strickland to fight for the belt next time out against Dricus du Plessis is going to be the fight that I'm going to call for. He is the most deserving contender right now. And you can say, oh, but you're not giving Arman Tsarukyan the shot next. Well, that's because I'm considering super fight status matchups for him. I'm not saying DDP should go up and fight against Alex Pereira. So I think Sean Strickland, the true number 1 contender, deserves a second crack, especially as close as that last fight was. Let's keep jumping down. Paulo Costa versus Michel Pereira. That's 100% the fight to make. Costa's been getting ranked fights ahead of him the past 2. Robert Whittaker fight against Sean Strickland. And he lost both. Didn't look bad really in both, but he lost both. So why not jump him down the rankings a little bit and give him a Brazilian savage who will play into the Costa striking game all night? Michel Pereira recently moved up from 170, and he's been killing everybody. He beat Poirier, destroyed him last time out. But to be fair, Michel Pereira has been fighting cans, Oleksiejczuk, Petrosky. Nobody to the level of Paulo Costa or any of Paulo Costa's last few opponents, man. I mean, if you think about Paulo Costa's recent win, it was Luke Rockhold. Luke Rockhold's not in the UFC anymore. I mean, I know he won against Joe Schilling in Karate Combat, if that says anything. He's still got some fight left in him. But he wasn't super impressive there. He lost to Strickland, but he went the full 5. I think it's time Costa has to fight backwards. You eventually got to defend your spot. I know he did it with Rockhold, but that was against a former champ. I think it's time that he fights a legit contender on the come-up in Michel Pereira. Battle of really good strikers. A favorable fight for Paulo Costa. I think he can win. Pereira's going to be dangerous, though, and I want to see this fight happen. I'm very adamant about the UFC making this fight, so I think Paulo Costa, Michel Pereira is a banger. It's better than giving him Brendan Allen or something along those lines, the Cannonier Amavov loser. Why? Paulo Costa's out of the title picture now, and he is for the foreseeable future. I said before the fight against Strickland, if Costa loses, he'll never fight for a title again. And I will stand on that bold prediction. I don't believe Paulo Costa ever challenges for a UFC title again. But I do think he can be involved in some very fun fights in the UFC and make a lot of money. Let's do the Michel Pereira fight. Still a fan favorite battle, and I think good striking match. Next one, Kevin Holland versus Roman Kopilov. It's a great fight. Holland just fought at 185. He was knocked down by Oleksiejczuk. Then he was able to lock up a submission. It's not like Kevin Holland's 170 career is moving marvelously. He's lost 2 fights in a row at 170. Decision against Jack Della Maddalena. Decision against Michael Venom Page. Sure, they were close enough fights. They weren't complete washouts, but they were kind of sparring match pace type fights. They weren't great. He just beat Oleksiejczuk at 85, so mentally I'm going to keep him at 85 and matchmake him at 185. And I feel like Roman Kopilov, who also fought on the card and won, but was a little bit underwhelming because he was really controlling with takedowns to win the fight when he's normally the striker. Still, though, give Kopilov some praise. I need to. I'm talking shit. Kopilov dropped Cesar Almeida in the first round. He did well in the stand-up. He did gas a little bit late, but he used his MMA skills and won a decision. Almeida on the feet was doing work. But Kopilov secured the W with Almeida's inability to stop takedowns. Kevin Holland's jiu-jitsu is definitely better than Kopilov's. I think Kopilov's the better striker. But Holland's got some long reach, and he's still got some power in his hands. It's an intriguing fight. I'm interested in the matchup if Holland's going to stay at 85. He calls himself the gatekeeper of gatekeepers. I think for Roman Kopilov, yeah, you could give him Chris Curtis, but who knows how long Curtis is out with the hamstring injury. And now Kopilov is what? Going to get jumped ahead in the rankings? He just lost to Fluffy, who's ranked 14. Fluffy Hernandez choked him out. I don't think he deserves a ranked fight next. I think he deserves Kevin Holland, a big name fight next. I think it could be fireworks. That's the fight I want. Randy Brown versus Jeff Neal. Randy Brown called him out. Why not make the fight? Jeff Neal is on a losing streak. He's been doing the UFC some favors, taking on absolute savages on the come-up. Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ian Gary. Randy Brown just won a fight against Oleksiejczuk Zaleski. Decent fight. He looked okay. I think it's time we give Jeff Neal maybe a more favorable matchup. And you're going to say, oh, but Neal, isn't he ranked number 11? Randy Brown's not even ranked. Neal's on 2 straight losses. I think that Randy Brown calling him out kind of won him the spot and will get him the fight. I might be over jumping it for Randy Brown. If Holland drops back down to 170, it won't blow my mind if they did Randy Brown versus Kevin Holland. That was another fight. I almost picked that as the matchup to make. But I'm thinking I got to matchmake Holland at 85 because that's where he just fought. And who knows where he's going to fight next. He might step in and fight Nick Diaz if Luque pulls out. Or if Diaz pulls out, he might fight Luque. Or if the Ferguson fight opens up, he could fight either one of them. I mean, he beat Chiesa already, so maybe not. But I don't know. Maybe somehow, he's not fighting Ferguson. You know what? No, take that back. Holland off a win's not fighting Ferguson. But he might fight Diaz or Luque. So with Kevin Holland, it's kind of random. I'm going to give him Kopilov. But I don't have 100% certainty this is the next matchup. I'll give it like a 1 in 4 chance. Might be. We'll see what happens with those two. But Randy Brown, Jeff Neal opens up, and I think it's interesting. I want to see Jeff Neal have a step down because he's fighting the best of the best on the come up. And I feel like now's the time to give him a fight against Randy Brown. Randy Brown's long. He's good from the outside. His boxing's pretty crisp. Crisp enough, at least. Now, how does he deal with Jeff Neal? I think timelines work out. I think a fight could be made. And I think Brown could get the opportunity of a lifetime. But I'll be honest with you. I think Jeff Neal probably knocks him out. Next one. Jailton Almeida versus Cyril Gane. I feel like Jailton Almeida and Cyril Gane is the perfect fight to make. Simply because there comes a time where Gane's going to have to fight another dangerous, threatening style that isn't the world champ. He can't just stick around beating, scrubs. What's he going to do? Like, come on, man. Gane beat Tybura. What's he going to do? He's going to rematch Tybura? Is he going to wait? I don't know. Take on Pavlovich if he wins, but like against Volkov? But like, I don't even know. Don't they want to do a fight in France, sometime later this year? Jailton Almeida knows about it. He called for it. I know he's a bad matchup for Cyril Gane, and I know why Gane would be terrified because Jailton gets him down. It's over with. Jailton Almeida is going to tap a majority of guys at 205, at 265. Probably at 205, too, if you decide to cut weight. Curtis Blaydes was literally the worst matchup for Jailton Almeida in the division because of his wrestling prowess, but everybody else is toast. I mean, he destroyed Romanov with ease, who's known as a good grappler in the weight class, even though fat as hell and completely out of shape. I think the Cyril Gane fight versus Jailton Almeida is going to be next, and I think it is probably a top contender fight. If Tom Aspinall goes out, wins against Curtis Blaydes, John Jones' fight is still nowhere to be found. Maybe he's defending the interim title for a second time. Most interim defenses in UFC history. Jailton Almeida or Cyril Gane could potentially be what's next for him. Let's keep running down. Grant Dawson versus Yoel Alvarez. The reason I'm giving Grant Dawson Alvarez is because Alvarez is good at fighting from his back. He's got nasty elbows from the bottom. He throws up triangle attempts. His jiu-jitsu solid. But Grant Dawson's a way better wrestler. And Grant Dawson is probably going to be on top a lot in that fight. It's a winnable matchup. I just don't think I deserve to give Grant Dawson somebody ranked next. Bobby Green's 15. I'm not going to jump him in front of Bobby Green. Another name that came to mind, I'm like, Drakkar Klose, but I don't think so. Diego Ferreira, maybe. But Alvarez is still a prospect on the come up, or a contender to be excited about. And I feel like he has a dynamic style, which at the very least makes for an interesting fight. Yes, Dawson will get him down, but can Alvarez threaten with his jiu-jitsu and his dangerous bottom game? And on the feet, Alvarez is dangerous. Alvarez is a better striker for sure than Grant Dawson. And if he can defend some takedowns, it could turn out to be a really interesting fight. Alvarez is very tall and long. It's a weird matchup, and I think it's the matchup to make next. It's the fight right before Dawson then gets a ranked opponent, and we'll put that Bobby Green fight behind us. That's what I'm going to give Grant Dawson. And finally, up to the slate, Basel Hafez versus Leech, bro. Li Jingliang versus Basel Hafez next. Why am I doing this matchup? Well, Hafez went out there and had a war with Mickey Gall. He won the fight, but he definitely absorbed a lot of shots. Fight before that, he gave Jack Della Maddalena an extremely difficult fight. Probably the toughest fight in his UFC career. So I feel like we have to matchmake him properly. He deserves a step up in competition from the back-end guys like Mickey Gall, but he doesn't deserve somebody with a number next to their name. He deserves somebody that once had a number next to their name. Leech recently lost to Daniel Rodriguez in somewhat of a controversial decision, I'd say. Knocked out Salikov in the fight before. He's got big punching power. How do we not make this fight? It could be a really action-packed battle of two guys looking for the knockout. Maybe Hafez decides to use his wrestling more in the fight against the Leech, and he ends up being more dominant. It's the fight that I want to see next. I think Hafez deserves a solid matchup against somebody in the world who's pretty good. And I think the Leech is just the guy. Let's do it. Maybe Leech chins him. I could see Leech knocking Hafez clean out. I could see him catching him with an overhand shot and sleeping him because Hafez leaves openings. But I could see Hafez doing some serious damage too. Basel Hafez, Li Jingliang, the Leech is the fight to close out the show. Those are every fight that I want to see next. They're all the ones that I need next. That's every fight for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you all smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe it up. And listen, this series is coming with fire. I decided I got to start dropping my match makes. I got to start dropping my fights to make next. I got to put the matchmaker hat on. I already got it on. I might as well use it to my advantage. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the fights I want to see after UFC 302. And drop some of the fights you want to see. If you feel like I left anybody out, let me know. Much love, my people. And I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.